few come to mind, but they're quite rude. I don't know if I should say.
We might be thinking about the same one.
Wine tasting, like we went to the desert. Because imagine if we all lived in the same country, it would be incredibly boring.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into the European Guanxi podcast. We bring together young scholars, professionals, and experts to talk about the evolving relationship between the European Union and China. To dive deeper into this theme, be sure to catch our new episodes every 2 weeks. And welcome to the European Guanxi community. In today's episode, we are joined by Alla Garside, a Chinese language educator and the founder of a Chinese language school that focuses on media-based learning for professionals both inside and outside China. Based in Shanghai, Alla is also very active on social media, with an audience of over 38,000 followers on Instagram, where she shares practical insights into everyday Chinese and how language connects to culture, behavior, and society.
Sounds about right, yeah. Hi, my name is Alla. I run Sino-sphere on Instagram, which is a media-based Chinese school, and we have already about 10 teachers in our team. And our main goal is to teach people Chinese in a fun and also engaging way that is different to textbooks and gives you a more real insight into Chinese language and culture.
Awesome, thank you, Alla.
That's all right.
So in this conversation, we discuss what foreigners learning Chinese often might misunderstand about China and Chinese learning, and how learning Mandarin Chinese beyond textbook Chinese changes the way people understand Chinese society, including concepts such as face, 面子, politeness, power, and the way language is just more than just words. It is a gateway into how society actually works. We will also discuss some interesting concepts such as Guanxi, cultural misconceptions on both sides, life in Shanghai versus Europe, and what it really takes to understand China beyond surface-level textbook narratives. So, thank you so much once again for joining us, Alla.
That's okay.
I'm so happy to be here with you today. And I would love to start with something that I've seen coming up quite a lot in your own work and your social media. So in your content, you talk about the gap between textbook Chinese and how locals actually speak and behave. So I was wondering, what do you think is the biggest lie foreigners are taught about communication and how it really works in China?
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a lie. I don't know if I've branded it that way with my Instagram, but what I mean is I think most people that have started off with Chinese always start with a textbook, which is okay, but it sort of prepares you more for a scholarly kind of life in China. And the reality is most people want to come to China and just converse with regular people, have very, casual conversations, and I don't think a textbook prepares you for that. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a lie, but it's sort of a direction that you go in with textbooks, and that's being able to understand written Chinese, but not necessarily being able to talk to like your Didi driver or the old lady in your xiaoqu. So that's why I think we have this focus on media, which gives people an exposure to the Chinese that you're more likely to hear in the streets as opposed to what a textbook teaches you.
Yeah, amazing. I fully agree. Also kind of had the same experience since coming to China compared to what you usually learn in a classroom, which is completely different.
Yeah, for sure.
So when someone kind of understands what real Chinese is and how to speak it, do you think they might notice something different about maybe how politeness work in China or power relations or hierarchy compared to if they would only learn textbook Chinese?
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't say so much about the hierarchy, just in my experience. I think once you start to engage with like a more real Chinese or more casual Chinese, you see that there are lots of shortcuts, there's lots of slang, euphemisms, and also cultural references. Like especially nowadays, there's so many slangs that come up almost every month in Chinese, which you wouldn't have in a textbook, because a textbook is sort of limited in time, right? It's created in a year, and then that's the sort of material that stays there. Whereas when you learn with media, you're going to be constantly exposed to like new stuff that's coming up. So I'd say that's sort of the main difference you would notice is like, okay, now I'm seeing the kind of slangs that people use in China in 2025, 2026, and saying that people actually, when they speak Chinese, they have shortcuts. Chinese people, I would say, like to convey their message in as little words as possible. Sometimes the phrases in textbooks are really wordy. And
do you have an example, if I may jump in?
Like, for example, one thing that we looked at in the course, like maybe one of the first structures you learn in Chinese, like 如果 dot 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 的话, right? Like if something, and actually Chinese people, they would just say like 的话, and that's very common. They will just omit like the first part of some kind of structure.
Oh, that's true.
Although, so like when it comes to something, they will just use 的话 at the end. And I don't think textbooks teach you that because it's extremely colloquial to say that. But it's so common. I hear it almost every day in China.
Yeah. Have you found any other slang encountered on social media, Chinese social media, that particularly stuck with you and you found funny or interesting?
A few come to mind, but they're quite rude. I don't know if I should say.
I might be thinking about the same one.
Yeah. For example, like one of my favorites actually is like 辞敬, which is sort of a bit like 绿茶婊. Yeah, I don't think I should say that very loudly, but this is sort of like a girl that is a sort of pick-me girl, and I think a lot of people don't know that maybe, but it's a useful word, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because it translates to like green tea girl.
Oh yeah, green tea, because green tea is like clear. It looks clear at the surface, but actually below, like maybe it's a bit murky, and that's kind of the metaphor that green tea bitch brings about. It's that a girl is trying to be nice on the surface, but actually below she's not so nice.
Yeah, I think this is also one of the examples of why like direct translation from Chinese, which is something you learn in, especially at the start, like a textbook Chinese, doesn't really work, because you need to have like a sort of cultural understanding to go beyond the surface level.
Yeah.
Right? Have you encountered that with your students and in your course?
For sure, yeah. Like a lot of slangs have some kind of cultural reference. I'm trying to think of some at the top of my head, but I'd say like in general, Chinese people are very in tune with their culture and their history. So people like to use like 成语 that sort of transmit that. I think they think very deeply about their culture and history, and they weave that into their speech. So yeah, I would say if you want to learn Chinese, you have to know some culture at least. It's inevitable that you will come across it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, fully agree. So one other concept I wanted to discuss, which is really close and related to the name of our podcast, European Guanxi. So Guanxi is a very important concept in Chinese society and in Chinese culture. So I wanted to ask you, how would you explain what Guanxi actually means in the context of Chinese society, and what does it involve?
Okay. I think this is maybe an individual sort of answer that I'm going to give, because it depends on who you ask. But I think Guanxi, put simply, is your network and the people that you know in China, and that's people that you have good relations with. I can give the example of like business. So in the West, I say we don't put that much emphasis on building a relationship with your commercial partner. You just rely on like contracts to do that. Whereas in China, you build relationships first and then you do the deal or the contract. So that's probably the best kind of example of Guanxi I can give, is that you build like genuine human relations to build trust, and then you can actually do business. So again, that's why I say you cannot just come to China and like speak textbook Chinese or like translate word for word, because you're still missing that cultural element that helps you get close to people and then opens doors for you. So Guanxi is kind of like an encapsulation of that, I'd say.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of business, have you noticed any other patterns in different ways maybe Europeans or foreigners do business compared to how it works in China?
Yeah, so I'd say, well, kind of like the example I gave, a lot of people will agree with this, is that in China you have to be very mindful of like your relations with your commercial partners. So for example, like Spring Festival or Mid-Autumn Festival, you should send some kind of greeting or some kind of reminder that you're thinking about your commercial partner, and this obviously helps to like lubricate your relations. And just make life easier for you, really. So I'd say that's the main difference. Whereas in the West, maybe we're just like more practical. It's like, the contract is like this. We do it according to the deadline, and everything is sort of decided by the contract. So that's sort of the difference. I guess we're a bit more individual and like selfish in Western culture, and that sort of reflects in our business culture as well.
It's a bit drier in a way. It doesn't really rely on friendships or humor.
I can't imagine that someone in the West would take their business partner to get drunk at like karaoke, but I think that would definitely happen in Asia, like in China or especially like Japan or Korea.
And do you think there's anything that maybe Europeans or foreigners might misunderstand about China, Chinese society, and also how language learning can serve as a bridge between cultures and people? Or they might miss out on this aspect?
Yeah, good question. I think people misunderstand a lot. China is a bit of a buzzword online. Like I know that from running my channel. If as soon as someone clicks on my video and I start with China, I will get comments like, "Oh, you're a CCP bot," or like, "You're a communist bot," or like all these stupid insults. And I think people just associate like a country with its politics, which I guess in this day and age it's kind of difficult to not do that, especially with like what's happening on the global stage. But I think the main issue here is people associate like the populace of a country with the politics, and you always should be able to separate that, not only with China but with other countries as well. So I think people should kind of scratch beyond the surface, see that China is a huge country. It's not just like the Hanzu. There's also many different minorities, there's different dialects, there's different cultures, different opinions as well politically. So it's not like a monolithic country. There's so much to see. So brandishing it under like one name of like, oh, it's this evil communist state is like really stupid and not intellectual. So I would encourage people to always visit before you cast judgment.
Yeah. Has it been difficult for you to deal with like maybe more hateful comments online since you've been growing your social media platform?
I don't find it difficult to deal with. I guess as the Chinese would say it, like I have thick skin already, so I'm not like affected by hate comments. I don't really care. If people want to be ignorant about China, that's their loss. It's not my loss. So I don't really get affected by it, and I think Chinese people also don't, because they don't use like Instagram. So it's not a big deal for me.
And you do produce amazing content. So you should only ignore.
Yeah, I mean the most important thing is that it reaches the people who are actually interested in culture, and I would say like 95% of people are overwhelmingly positive, and then you have the small minority of people that are idiots, but it doesn't really affect me.
Yeah. And on the other side then, do you think there might be something that Chinese people might misunderstand about foreigners who come to China?
Yeah, unfortunately there are also stereotypes here, but I would say maybe they're not as malicious. Like for example, when you take a taxi in China and you mention where you're from, sometimes I switch it up because I have English and also Russian blood in me, I guess. So sometimes I say I'm English, sometimes I say I'm Russian, and I just listen to the kind of stereotypes that the drivers say. And they'll be like, "Oh, like Russia, you are like a fighting nation. Tell me about the war in Ukraine." It's like I don't even live in Russia, so I can't say much about that. Or like if I say I'm from England, they start talking about like the British Empire, which is really hilarious. So I would say they're sort of like harmless, silly stereotypes that some people have because they haven't left China, or they get most of their information from like very basic media. So these are kind of like less harmful stereotypes. One small thing I will mention is I think maybe Chinese guys assume that like foreign girls are sort of easy or loose, and sometimes I have like not horrible encounters but kind of awkward encounters, like people saying some silly stuff in the gym, which I guess just is a misunderstanding. They think that foreign girls come here to sort of just have fun in that sense, but that's not true. Like I'm here to experience the culture and work. But it's a small minority. I'd say a lot of Chinese men are very respectful, and Chinese people in general are very respectful.
Speaking of men then, and kind of have you noticed any different patterns in the dating culture here in China compared to in Europe?
I don't know if I have so much authority on this because I've never dated in China, but I would say from what I've heard, dating in China is taken more seriously than in the West. I think most people know this, like Chinese people are more conservative in general. That's not to say everyone. In general are more conservative than Western people. So like if they do a relationship, both sides will take it seriously and think about a potential future together. and there's probably less casual dating. But again, I don't have much experience, so I can't exactly say what dating is like in China.
Yeah. Moving on to then more your personal experience here in China. One other question that I was really curious to ask is, what have you learned about yourself from living in China, in Shanghai? And is there anything about yourself that genuinely maybe surprised you after such a long time? And
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if this applies to other foreigners, but I think when I moved to China, I learned to be more stoic. For example, like if you're driving on the road in China in a car or on a bike, most people will drive kind of crazily, and like especially people will park on the side of the road where they're not meant to. And I used to get kind of annoyed about that, but now I just accept like the craziness that happens on the road. And I just think if you stoically accept a lot of other things that foreigners find annoying in China, like the spitting or like the lack of personal space, which is due to a large population, I think you can enjoy your life a lot in China. They're not necessarily negative things, but it's just things that are different to the West. And I think once I moved here, I realized you don't have to love everything about a country to enjoy living here. And it's true, like the grass is always green on the other side. So, you know, there are minuses to everywhere you live. I fully resonate with what you said. Like sometimes it's not just about something being negative, but just different. Maybe you're not really accustomed to. Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like being more stoic and accepting a bit more the ways of living in the place you come to in China.
Yeah, just be curious, be open-minded, and you know, if you hate it, you always have the option to leave, but like you should just enjoy your time and you know, experience the difference.
Yeah, and as you said, China I think offers also a lot of opportunities that you might miss out if you're living just in European countries or in the West. Starting from, I can think of safety probably.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially as a woman.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
China.
So there are like pluses and minuses, and you know, that's just part of life. Like it's never going to be perfect anywhere. But in terms of like chaos, you know, just be stoic about it, and actually you realize it's not a big deal. Like you just adjust your tempo to it.
Yeah, the traffic can be quite crazy in Shanghai. I think it's like Beijing.
Yeah. The good thing is like you break some rules yourself, and then you realize like you're not going to be penalized anyway because no one follows them anyway.
Yeah, you kind of to understand how the locals do it, and then
exactly.
Imitate them.
入乡随俗.
Exactly. So building on this, if a European listener or a foreigner wanted to genuinely understand how Chinese society works, not just to visit or study, but really truly understand for living long term, what do you think is the first belief or kind of a few beliefs that assumptions or maybe they should start unlearning?
I think based on what people are exposed to in the West, like in terms of media, what I mentioned before is like about the politics. So people think like China's repressive, it's like an evil state, like everyone is monitored, like you don't have freedom of speech. And like, okay, the governance in China is not the same as the West, but that's because it's a different country with different history, different values, different culture, and you cannot expect every place to be the same as your country. It's kind of arrogant to be like that, so I would say just come to China with an open mind, accept that maybe you will not agree with everything, but that doesn't mean you have to hate it or like, you know, cast some kind of stereotypical judgment. Just accept the difference and be curious. I think that's the main thing. I'm a very curious person by nature. Like I love difference. I think that's what makes the world interesting. Because imagine if we all lived in the same country, it would be incredibly boring. With the same values, the same language, like the same looks, you know, it's boring. So explore and enjoy.
And I think one misconception about China is also that it's kind of like just a unit, like a block. It's just China and Chinese people. But I think a lot of foreigners tend to overlook the differences in the regions and
exactly. I mean, this is the same about any country. Like the idea of a nation state is very modern. It's man-made basically. Every country, as we know today, it obviously has minorities in it and different cultures, different languages. So, you know, it applies to China, it applies to Russia, it applies to, you know, countries in Europe as well. Like you have difference everywhere. So you can't have some kind of stereotypical judgment about anywhere really, not just China.
Yes, fully agree.
Yeah.
And speaking of values and different mindsets, what do you think might be one of the biggest values or mindset that foreigners could learn from Chinese people and Chinese society?
I guess what we could learn is maybe have more collective values. So obviously we are like an individualist society in the West. We always put ourselves first. And I guess in China, people think more about their immediate community. I think one thing we could also learn is like having a community as you get older, because in the West, I guess people become more reclusive as they get older, and that's also what contributes to like earlier death. Whereas in Asia, you see people live longer because they congregate outside together, they do sports together, they do social activities together. So I think that would be a nice value to bring into the West as well. Oh, and also, this might be controversial, but I do think Asians are more hardworking than Western people, especially like British people are kind of lazy compared to Chinese, I think.
Really? So that to me, Italian is like...
We are very chill. I do admire the Chinese sort of drive and grit, and that's kind of what made the Chinese miracle, I guess, in the 20th century, because they have lifted like so many people out of poverty. That's not to say like you should work yourself to death, but you know, there are parts of this hard work that we can bring into the West as well.
Do you think there's a different approach maybe to the Chinese mindset to work compared to like European mindset that sees it as a something incredibly negative and horrible and very individual, kind of like a pain that you have to bear by yourself?
Yeah. I wouldn't say Chinese necessarily love work. It's just the belief that, you know, work-life balance is like a luxury and not a necessity, whereas in the West, we see it as a necessity as opposed to a luxury. Stuff like gap years, they're getting more common in China now, but it was probably unheard of like 10 or 20 years ago, whereas in the West, basically every second person does a gap year. Because, you know, we believe that you should enjoy your work. It should be incorporated with your passion. Whereas I think Chinese have a bigger delineation between passion and work. Like work is work and then passion is passion. But I guess that's different in like big cities like Shanghai, where people are more like creative and cosmopolitan.
Okay, so continuing on your personal experience here in China, and obviously you're from the UK. So I wanted to ask, how do you think the quality of life in China compares to UK or Europe, not just materially but also socially? Because China obviously is a very collective society compared to Western. Yeah.
Okay, so materially, I think this is a no-brainer, but obviously life in China is cheaper. That's because there's more labor available, so the cost is pushed down. Whether that's a good thing kind of depends on ethics. A lot of people say it's not very ethical. I would kind of agree. So I try not to use like super cheap services all the time. But yeah, like, you know, you get more bang for your buck in China. That's obviously nice. In terms of social, I would say, well, I'm just treated differently in China, obviously, because I'm not Chinese, and you can tell by the way I look. And even if you speak Chinese, I obviously have no communication issues. I feel like I'm still sort of treated like an outsider, not in a menacing way, but like I think we will never truly be Chinese as the Chinese view themselves. So that's one sort of thing that can sometimes make it lonely to live in China. But there are more social activities, I guess, more ways to be part of a community as well. Like, you know, Chinese are more collective, so that's probably another thing. But I wouldn't say my life feels too different to how it does when I'm elsewhere, because I'm just very interested in culture and languages, so like everywhere is as exciting for me as China is.
Yeah.
So,
also, two things for me that really make a difference, I think, is, how do you say, like, 方便? The
convenient.
Yeah, the convenience of living in China and the safety. These two
aspects.
Yeah,
that's true.
Which is a bit, safety here is also a bit controversial in thinking Western media because it comes from the cameras everywhere.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good point. I guess because I don't come from like a super dangerous country. Maybe if I came from like, you know, Latin America, it would be a different story. But the UK is still relatively safe. Like, you know, London is an exception, but I don't come from there, so I would say like I feel equally safe in China and in the UK. Maybe the only thing is petty theft. I haven't actually experienced that in China, so that's a big plus because petty theft is a problem in the UK. Like lots of people lose phones, gadgets, stuff like that. So yeah, I feel safe leaving my phone like on a coffee table in China.
Yeah. is a privilege we often overlook, I think, in the West, but it's really convenient when you're here and you can just trust people more and rely on people more.
Definitely,
yeah. So speaking again about your experience here living in China, how do you think language learning and learning Chinese beyond textbook level Chinese has helped you to fit more into the society and enjoy your experience better?
Yeah, again, it's just being able to have more casual conversations as opposed to like really scripted and formal sounding Chinese, because it puts people off, I guess. They almost feel like maybe bored with the conversation. And like sometimes I feel this as well with like some Chinese people who want to practice English with me, and I can tell they learned their English from a textbook because they speak like with a very formal tone and it sounds kind of strange. And I just feel like it's harder to create a connection with someone like that. So I think that's the main benefit of learning more practical Chinese, is that you can really connect with people on any level and make more friends. So
yeah, have you been treated differently? Is there like an example of a situation where someone treated you differently because of that?
I think we are treated differently, you know, just because of how we look, and like I said, not in a malicious way, but it's just inevitable you'll be treated differently because you're an object of curiosity. So I don't think it necessarily has to do with the Chinese, but maybe just the way we look. But yeah, sometimes like you have that occasional moment when you sit in a taxi, like you talk to the guy, he doesn't look behind, and then like it's funny, 15 minutes into the drive he looks behind, he's like, oh my god, you're a foreigner, I thought you were Chinese. And he was like, you don't look Chinese. I was like, yeah, I'm not Chinese. So
they don't believe you sometimes. They keep insisting. They're like, no, you must be Chinese.
Yeah, you must be like from Xinjiang or something.
From Xinjiang, yeah.
Those moments are quite funny, but yeah, you'll be treated differently anyway because of how you look. That's inevitable.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, lastly, I was really curious if you could share a funny story or an anecdote that maybe happened in China that you think was significant to shaping your language learning journey and also a time in China.
Actually, this is kind of funny as well. So when I first came to China, my first job was basically like an internship in a Chinese factory, and I hated it. It was really boring. The boss was horrible. Like it was like typical Chinese sort of work management, and that it's very like juan. So the management was very rude and nasty. But
could you briefly explain what juan means for our audience?
Yeah, sure. So juan is if you look at the official translation, it's like involution or something, which doesn't make any sense. But basically, it's like rat race in China. So like workplaces that are very insistent on you climbing the corporate ladder, you would describe as like juan. So like working maybe Saturdays from 9 till 9, that kind of environment. So yeah, the place I was at was very juan, and I was thinking about quitting, and then I got some invitation to go to Ningxia to film in a documentary.
Wow!
So I had to think of an excuse to leave my job. I was like, this is so boring. I need to think of a good excuse. So I just said that I had to attend a family emergency, and then I went to film this documentary, which was amazing.
Wow!
Like it was.
What was it about? Documentary?
Just about like traveling in Ningxia. So that was really nice. Like I saw a new side of China. Like I said, China's very diverse. So seeing Ningxia was really impressive. We ate like a whole roast lamb. We went wine tasting. Like we went to the desert. Like did stargazing. Went to like boutique hotels. So it was super fun, and a big contrast to being stuck in this factory in Zhuhai, which I hated. So yeah, that was probably my funnest point in China. And I guess what you can learn from that is say yes to every fun opportunity in China.
You may never know what's the outcome, what opportunities might await you, especially in China. I find it. You never know who you're going to meet, and then because Guanxi is so important. So
exactly, I did meet some awesome people on that trip. I still keep in contact with them, and it's people that are equally obsessed with Chinese language, Chinese culture, and travel, and that's exactly my interest. So say yes to that opportunity, that big opportunity.
Yes, agreed. Nice. Okay, I think we've reached the conclusion, the end of this interview. So Alla, thank you so much again for this conversation.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for sharing your ideas and also your experiences living and working here in China. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the European Guanxi podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us and join the conversation. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. So, 谢谢大家. Thank you so much. And thank you, Alla.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.